Hey, what's up? So recently I made a video about Al Hirschfeld, the classic editorial illustrator who did all those great caricatures. And I mentioned in the video about his very iconic signature, where at the end he would end it with a number. And the number corresponded to how many Ninas he hid in his drawing. Nina was the name of his daughter, and he would very cleverly sneak in her name several times throughout a drawing and then put the number there, and it became a thing, and it was up to the reader to go back in and try to find all the Ninas. I thought that was a really great idea, and it's a great way to involve your audience. But it led me to think about signatures as a whole and the opportunities that they offer beyond just legitimizing a piece, by signing it. And some artists get really creative with their signature. Some artists have much more iconic signatures than others. And I think about this from my particular perspective because I feel like my signature is just whatever. I mean, ever since I was a kid, I was always trying to come up with something clever, something cool. At one point, I was signing my name TP. At another point, I was Tom Patilli. At some point or another, I just went as Thomas Patilli. And then it was like, how do I draw this in a way or, sign this in a way that's clever and interesting? Ultimately, I've never been like a really good typography guy. My actual handwriting is awful. I write like I'm in like the fourth grade or something. So I decided that my signature is just going to be me trying to clearly print my name. So it still kind of looks like I'm in the fourth grade, but at least it's consistent and it's clear. I remember hearing Jim Lee say in an interview that your signature as an artist is really important, and the most important thing you can get out of your signature is clarity. Some artists just go with the scribble or something like that, and it's hard for someone who might be into that drawing to decipher, like, who is that? So if you could just be clear and write your name clearly, someone can always try to find more of your work. So I feel like that's like probably the most practical, basic approach to creating a signature. But then, like I mentioned earlier, some artists get really, really clever with it. And some signatures over the course of time become almost like iconic and have become something that can really help like brand an artist in a way that's clever and marketable and very recognizable. So in this video, I was just going to go over some recognizable, clever, interesting signatures by comic artists throughout the years, at least the ones that I can think of off the top of my head. So I made a little bit of a list, and I thought I'd go through some of them here with you. You might be familiar with some of these, and some of these you might not be. So first off is Walt Simonson. I was watching a video of his a couple of years ago where he was drawing, and he was talking about his love of dinosaurs growing up, and how he figured out a way to draw a dinosaur in every one of his drawings.
When I was in school, before I became an artist, I'd always drawn. I wanted to be a paleontologist, study dinosaurs. So I developed a signature between 11th and 12th grade. When I write Simonson, I write it like that. It's S-I-M-O-N-S-O-N. That's the dinosaur. That's the head and the eye. That's the neck. That's the hump over the back, and that's the tail. So I did my signature as a Brontosaurus. And because I got rid of the name Brontosaurus for the actual animal, I now believe this to be the only Brontosaurus in captivity.
I've always been familiar with Walt Simonson's signature, but I actually never knew that that's what it was supposed to be. I'm not sure if too many people picked up on that. But I think it's a really thoughtful and clever approach to writing your name out. Romita Jr. is another artist that has a very recognizable, almost at this point iconic signature, and just playing off of his initials. He's John Romita Jr., so JR. Super simple. it kind of sets him apart from his dad, who's an iconic comic book artist and has his own very recognizable signature. I feel like that was a really good way for him to almost like hold his own in a world that his dad helped create, really. And over the years, people even just refer to him as JR. So I always thought that was a really clever way of signing his name. Back when I was younger, I was obsessed with Joe Madureira's work on Uncanny X-Men. That's where I first saw his work, and I was a big fan. And then he went on to Battle Chasers. But I always thought that it was really cool that he would just sign it Mad with an exclamation point. There were a lot of like Joe Mad imitators around that time, so it was almost like his signature was like the stamp of authenticity. You know, sometimes another artist might get pretty close to his style, but you always knew that I don't think that's really Joe Mad, and then you'd always look for that very recognizable signature, and that was like the stamp of approval. Regardless, though, I think it's a really clever simplification of his name. Like, that's the thing with a name like Joe Madureira or even like John Romita. Some of these names aren't as easy as a Smith or Johnson or something like that. So you want to simplify it in a way that's easily digestible and easily read and remembered by the viewer. I suppose Patilli, my last name, isn't really the easiest one to read or remember. Most of the time, people are always mispronouncing it anyway, so I probably should have come up with a clever simplification of my name. I feel like I'm a little late on that, but you never know. Maybe one day I'll become like Pitt or something, something like that. Similar to Joe Mad with the exclamation point, I always remembered Mike Wieringo by his signature as well. He just went by Ringo, exclamation point. And again, Wieringo is a tough name to read, remember, recognize, see from far away. But Ringo is super iconic. So I always thought that was really great branding. And I was a big fan of Mike Wieringo growing up. I loved his run on Robin when I was a kid. I feel like his version of Robin is probably the best version of Robin, even to this day. And I've been meaning to actually want to do a Mike Wieringo video, so I feel like one of these days that's gonna happen. He's worked on so many different titles, and he's such an incredible storyteller, and he had such a large body of work. And in this case, he had an awesome signature as well. Now, some artists get really creative with their signature. I mean, Walt Simonson is an example of that. And then others experiment over the course of time with their signature. So I guess there's still hope for me. I don't have to be locked into this fourth grade style signature. I could always experiment over the years. And one of the artists who experiments in really clever ways is Chris Pachchallo. I never know how to say it, but I've made a video on him in the past. His work is excellent, and I feel like his style is always evolving. He's always trying out different things, and it's even consistent within his signature. I'd say it seems like 65 to 75% of the time he goes by Pachchallo in like a kind of script writing, but there are a bunch of instances over the years where he's experimented with different interpretations of his name. Sometimes, maybe more recently, it seems like he just goes by a C. It's almost like a copyright symbol. I've seen times where he blends his name and the inker's name together to create one word. An example of this is crescendo. This is when he was working with Richard Friend on Steampunk. Richard Friend, Chris, so it became Crescendo, which I thought was kind of funny. For a while there, when he was doing Generation X, he went by Crucky. I'm not sure what that means. Then he went by Mr. Chris for a little bit. So there's been a bunch of different incarnations of his signature, and I'm sure if you look hard enough, you could probably find other ones as well. But like I said, it's kind of consistent with his overall style, so it works really well. I also think that there's something perhaps noble about not writing out your name the same or very clearly on every single piece. It's almost like you're separating yourself from your ego in a way. You know, a lot of times you want to say like, this is me, this is my work. I want everyone to know that this is me. There's, I guess, a confidence or a maturity there from an artist who's willing to just, you know, blend their name with someone else's name, or go by an alias that's not even their own name, or sometimes write it out clearly and other times not write it out clearly. I guess in a way, maybe that's something to aspire to. Who knows? Maybe when you get big enough, everybody recognizes your style and your work and you don't even need a signature. Which, to be honest, is kind of like Mike Mignola. It seems like in recent years, he just goes by M. It's just an M, period. I think that's pretty cool. I mean, Mike Mignola has such a recognizable style at this point. He's created like a whole world that's his own. So I feel like whether it's signed or not, you kind of know it's his work. Because for a while there, for most of his career, he was signing it Mignola in a pretty consistent way. But I've noticed over the years it's just become M. Similarly with Bruce Timm, I talked about Bruce Timm in a recent video, and he's just BT. Again, I mean, not too many people are going to confuse Bruce Timm's work with anyone else. He really created a very recognizable version of Batman and that whole world, even his style and his proportions. And they kind of go hand in hand. Like you see his work and then you see the BT and you know, oh, that's him. So I feel like he's another one that doesn't even have to really write out his full name. Everybody knows. If you're a fan of Bruce Timm, you know that that's his signature and that's his work, even before you even see his signature. And then how could I leave out the classic 90s signature within a scroll that's torn and has bullet holes in it? I think of Rob Liefeld. I think of Todd McFarlane. And then I also think of a bunch of other like image comic artists who were doing the scroll. You know, you would draw like a tattered piece of paper with like bullet holes and it would be ripped on the edges, and then you'd write your signature within that. I know this very well because if I look back at old work of mine from the 90s when I was a young kid, I was doing the same thing. I had a version of my signature that was also in like a piece of tattered paper. That was the thing to do back then. And it's so funny because I remember looking at those signatures and thinking, man, that looks so cool. I think since then, both Rob Liefeld and Todd McFarlane have sort of, for the most part, ditched the scroll and they just have their signature. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure the scroll is used a lot less by the two of them nowadays. And I barely ever see an artist rocking the scroll signature anymore, but I'm sure there's a few out there. And at this point too, it's been gone for so long that if you do it now, bringing it back is almost like a unique, cool thing to do. So I feel like enough time has passed. Maybe the scroll is up for grabs once again. So yeah, this was something I was thinking about recently, ever since I made that Hirschfeld video. And so I thought this would be a fun video. And hopefully it was of interest and entertaining to you. Let me know in the comments below if I'm missing any. I know I am. I was trying to make this list, and I was like, I know I'm going to miss some really obvious ones that are like some great signatures, classic stuff. But I also figure that someone in the comments will remind me of a bunch, and I'm going to go, oh man, I should have included that. But I could always make a part 2. So cool. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this was fun. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.